Hello and welcome to Tween Talk. Glad you are here. I'm Marina Gabor and we are going to get started. Three red flags you need to teach your kids to keep them safe as they are online. So how can we, hopefully that's not pausing too much. Here we go. So how can we teach our kids to be safe online? I remember for many years I taught a Home Alone course, and this was to tweens sort of this 9 to 12 age, and their parents would sign them up and send them so that they could learn some skills, so that they could stay home by themselves when their parents were out, or between work and or the time school was done and the time the parents got home from work, or if the parents decided they wanted to go out for a bit, go grocery shopping without taking their kids with them, they could do that. And one of the things that we talked about was how to stay safe online, and that prompted a bunch of interesting discussions about online safety and what actually happens and what these kids' experiences were and how they thought they could be safer online. And a couple of things came up there. In some of these apparently there's like chat in a variety of games, and people in the chat are not always as nice as they could be. And so sometimes there is some bullying going on. And it wasn't just one kid that mentioned this, it was multiple kids. And so it prompted this discussion on how can we still have fun but not get bullied? What do you do? A lot of them said, well, I just have to leave the game, or I just can't engage with that person, or I have to block that person. So they had some tools for dealing with that kind of situation. And as we go through today, by the end of today in our session, hopefully you'll have 3 red flags that you can talk about with your tween. So you can say, hey, if any of these 3 things happen, that should send up a little warning sign going, something's not right here. And you can get out of that situation. We can talk about it and move forward, because we really want to keep our kids safe online. If you don't know me already, I'm Marina Gabor, founder of this Tween Talk community, also the tweentalk.co website, and the Life Skills Club for tweens, which the purpose is to help parents help their tweens talk about communication, organization, critical thinking skills. These are the foundational skills that tweens need in order to thrive, in order to be independent learners and develop some of those skills, those foundations for the adulting skills they need as they move forward. All right. So let's dive right in. I was super excited today to have a conversation with my older daughters, and I was saying, hey, these are the 3 red flags I think parents of tweens need to be thinking about and talking about with their tweens. What do you think? Am I on track? Am I off track? Think about when you were that age. And it prompted this whole beautiful discussion. So I am happy to be diving in with these things today. So number 1 red flag, people that have ill intent, that are predators, and so on, they're going to be asking a lot of questions. This isn't just your regular kind of conversation. You know, as you get to know somebody, you do find out information about them. That's how we get to know each other. And that's okay. But if somebody is coming on and your tween is chatting with them and they're like, oh, well, what's your name? And how old are you? And where do you live? And where do you go to school? And all of these personal information kinds of questions. Big red flag going, normally when kids are chatting, like I remember when my girls were tweens and they would go to like a youth event. So that was fine. I knew the youth leaders. I was happy for them to go to the youth event. And then I'd pick them up and I'd say, oh, how did it go? And they're like, oh, great. You know, I met these really cool kids. And I was like, oh, well, what were their names? I don't know. They had a good time. They didn't know their name. Didn't know, like, do they live in the city? Like, do they live near here? Like, I was thinking, you know, is this an opportunity for somebody that you can get together with again? Or they had no idea. So in these chat rooms online, if somebody is like, oh, well, where do you live? And where do you go to school? And all of these questions, your tween should have that alarm bell ringing, going, wait a minute. Usually kids aren't asking each other all of these questions. That seems really weird. And then we'll talk about how you can talk about these things in a bit. So we'll go through the other two red flags. The second red flag, and there are lots of them. And as I was digging deep, because I like to go down research rabbit holes a little bit sometimes, and there's a lot of red flags. And I thought, we just need to condense, because we need things that kids are actually going to remember, that we can talk about often, that are sort of these primary red flags. So that asking lots of questions, that's an easy one to remember. The second one is, do you know them in real life? If you know them in real life, and I know that on different forums, chat groups, games, whatever online, you can create a username. But if your tween is friends with somebody and they're going to be playing the same game online, they can share with each other, oh yeah, I'm username this, you know, and they share that in real life. Then they get online and they go, oh yeah, my friend is this username. I'm this username. And they know them in real life. Or perhaps you know who they are. You know it's a friend of a friend's kid, and you somehow got them connected. Okay, but you have a real life connection with them. So there's a greater chance that they're not going to be a predator if they know that you as a parent actually have a real life connection to them. Also, along with that, if your tween is still not sure, they're like, I wonder, do my parents know this person? And this isn't about saying, oh, you can be friends with this person and not this person. Like, this is just, do you know who this person is? But an interesting thing is people that are adults that are posing as kids, they will use adult language. So we've had many conversations in our household throughout the years, and most recently, interesting conversation about the difference between generations. Mom, which generation are you? And I'm this generation. And then thinking about, okay, what about this current generation? Or what about the generation that are tweens right now? Well, they speak very differently from a generation before. They have very distinctive slang, ways that they type, punctuate, use emojis. You know, sometimes youth use like a ton of emojis, no punctuation. The language is different. So if your tween is online and they are communicating with somebody and it's like this formal adult language, or they're like, I don't even know what that word means. What are they saying to me? Or there's no emojis, very formal punctuation. I go, this doesn't quite feel right. Like, my friends and I don't talk like this. Maybe they're using words that are more formal. So different parts of the world also, this could be a geographic thing that will give your tween a clue. Like, oh, where we live in Canada, we say things like this. Or in the US, we say things like this. We don't say that. Although, to be fair, I had a friend from the UK, and she would say trash and put things in the trash bin. Over here we say garbage, little things like that. But I purposefully would adapt to what she was saying. Now online, people are just using the language that they normally use. And so if it sounds different than what your tween is used to hearing or seeing, it doesn't mean they're a predator, but it means, let's pay attention. I better ask my mom, do they know this person? Do my friends know this person? Does anybody know this person in real life? And the third red flag is they may start asking the tween to engage in kind of conversations that are pushing the boundaries. It may start with, hey, can you send me a selfie? Which seems very innocent-ish. But tweens, like underage people, should not be sending pictures. Even overage people, like, be careful what you're sending, right? And if they're asking their tween for a selfie and they don't know them, red flag. If they're asking them to talk about sensitive topics, drugs, sex, alcohol, maybe you haven't talked about these with your tween yet. And if not, now's a great time. It's way better for you to have that conversation than for that conversation to happen online, because guaranteed your tween is curious, they're interested, they want to know the facts, they want to know, and they're going to find it out somewhere. So it better that it comes from you. And even when you have these kind of serious talks and they're like, I'm not really interested, or they seem uninterested, they are listening. 100% they are listening. And what that's telling them when you're having these kind of conversations is that any topic is free for talking about with mom and dad. Like, this is a good thing, so that when these things come up, it's not going to be the first time we've talked about it. Even if it's awkward, it is okay to talk about. So let's review those red flags, and then we'll see how can you talk to your tween about these and keep that conversation going. All right. So number 1, asking too many questions. Number 2, nobody seems to know who they are. They don't know, you don't know them. Your tween's friends don't know them. Your tween doesn't know them in real life. And thirdly, they are introducing kind of sensitive topic conversations and pushing that conversation, exploring topics that are better explored with your tween inside the family structure. All right, so how do we keep them safe? So your tween knows these red flags, that's great, but they still need to know what to do. What to do if this happens. They're online, they're engaged in a conversation, they're not expecting it. All of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, mom and I talked about that, and I need to get off. I don't need to engage in this conversation. And how you can keep those conversations open is with this interactive critical thinking model, meaning that you are interacting with your tween, but you're helping them with their critical thinking skills. You're talking them through things on a regular basis. So the first part of that is frequency, meaning we're talking about this regularly. So you're normalizing the fact that yes, you know your tween is going to be online at some point, and you're not always going to be there. So, okay, let's talk about what do we do if somebody's asking too many questions? What does too many questions mean? What questions are appropriate? What questions aren't appropriate? And this is not one conversation. So that's where the second thing comes in with flexibility. Sometimes you'll have time for a long conversation. Other times it'll just be like in passing, or maybe you have an experience. So I have received inappropriate messages and I was like, whoa, what is this? But instead of just keeping that to myself, I was like, I can tell my kids about this and say, yeah, you get all sorts of spammers. Like they just send inappropriate messages and I immediately delete. So then they go, oh, okay, this isn't about like I'm a bad kid if I get some sort of inappropriate message. I can delete. I can move on. This is how I can handle it. So we have those conversations and we have them often. If somebody is trying to talk to them about sex or drugs or alcohol and pushing them in those conversations, that can be kind of like, what do I do with that? Can I talk to mom about that? So that's where the third part of this model comes in, with that non-judgmental environment that you're creating. This doesn't mean that you are not judging, not having discernment. It means that you're enabling open communication so that these tough topics come up and your tween knows, I know mom and I had some talk about sex, what it is, when it's appropriate, all of these things. And this other person who I'm not sure I actually know. And now, like at first it was fine. And now like they're calling me sweetie and they're pushing the conversation. What do I like? And I'm really uncomfortable. And that's what these conversations, like those chats online, if they're pushing, they're seeing how comfortable is your tween with this conversation. How far can they push? So if your tween has that red flag going up and then they know, hey, mom and I talk about sex, I can talk to her and say, hey, somebody is trying to start this conversation with me that I'm not comfortable with. And because you have this open communication where you've said, yes, everything is, we can talk about everything, then they will come to you. And even if it might be awkward and take a little bit of time to work through, and as long as you like keep your face neutral and let them talk, and as they're talking and they sort of trail off, say the last word, keep them talking. Let them know they're not in trouble, that, you know what, it's really not appropriate for people to talk about those things with you. We can definitely talk about that here. And you make it a safe place for them. So the next time they're online, that little antenna warning is going to go off sooner because they're like, yeah, mom and I talked about this. Oh, no, that's not appropriate. And they'll be able to catch it sooner. They can talk to you. You can put things in place. Because the thing is, even if you have filters, even if you have computers in a public place, in your house, all of the things, your kids will encounter things as they progress, get older, are online more. And so if we teach them these red flags, this is part of like this critical thinking, and then give them a way to process and discuss with us without getting in trouble, that's going to build and nurture this relationship, this trust. So as things come up, they're going to keep talking to you and be safer online because you can help them build those critical thinking skills so they can make wiser decisions, so they can make those decisions sooner, better decisions sooner. So we have 3 red flags. I encourage you, talk to your tween about it today. It can just be like casual conversation, throw it out there. Then the next day, oh, maybe something else comes up, but it's very mindful. So if somebody's asking them too many questions, if you don't know them, nobody that you know knows them, big red flag. And if they're trying to have inappropriate conversations, even if they start kind of innocent, red flag. And then use that interactive critical thinking model where we have frequency. So we're talking with our tweens often, just making this part of regular conversation. It's not taboo, it's not hidden, they don't feel like they're at fault. We're having some flexibility in those conversations. Some of them are on the fly, when you're driving, in passing, and some of them are more like sit down, discuss, chew it through. And finally, always, always this open communication, this non-judgmental, like, you can talk to me. And then as a parent, then you've got to go and kind of process. But when you're facing them in that conversation, very open and non-reactive. And then when that conversation is done, then you can go and kind of process and go, whew, okay, how do we deal with this? And come up with a plan, and then go back and talk to your tween and say, hey, like, this seems to be kind of a big problem. Like, I don't feel like you're safe in this situation. Here's what we're going to do. So you're still always the parent. You're still always the one that's protecting them. But within that, you're teaching them these critical thinking skills so that they can be safe online. Whew, this is a tough topic, a hot topic. It might be just a reminder, or hopefully an encouragement to keep talking with your tween. And we can continue this kind of thing. We have the Life Skills Club, which is for tweens, helping them work through things. Right now, we are working on some goal setting. So that's what's up this week in the Life Skills Club. But we go through different topics on communication, organization, critical thinking skills. $9 a month. It's Tuesday afternoons. And then you also get some support via email saying, hey, here's what we talked about in the Life Skills Club. Here's how you can support your tween at home. And it's very practical without adding a lot of things to your calendar. So you can go to lifeskills.club and check that out. The first week is on me. I want to thank you for joining me for Tween Talk. Hopefully this has been helpful and encouraging, and I will see you next week.